All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty huge, something I know a lot of you have been thinking about. And, I've been seeing it too in some of the stuff you guys have been sending my way. Could AI chatbots actually, replace Google search? I mean, is that really going to happen?
Yeah, that's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question, and we've got a ton of research to go through today, articles, studies, all looking at, how accurate these AI chatbots really are. And of course, we all see that big appeal of an ad-free experience, but what does that actually mean for us when we're out there trying to find information? So let's just jump right in.
Okay, so one of the things that initially drew a lot of people to these AI chatbots was this idea that they should be more accurate than traditional search. It makes sense. They're using all this advanced AI. They're cutting out all the noise of the internet. But a recent study from the Till Center for Digital Journalism, it really kind of threw a wrench in that whole idea.
Oh.
Yeah, they found that over 60% of citations generated by various AI search engines were inaccurate.
Wait, 60%?
60%.
That seems like a lot.
That is a very high margin of error, especially if you're relying on these tools for, important factual information.
Yeah, that makes you think twice about where you're getting your info from. And the study actually broke it down even further, right? Like different chatbots had different failure rates.
Yeah, absolutely. So Perplexity, they actually had the lowest failure rate at 37%, which is still quite high.
Yeah.
But Grok 3 search was way up at 94%. So, there's a lot of variation there. And even ChatGPT, which is the one everyone's talking about, had a significant number of incorrect citations.
So even the best ones are still getting it wrong a good chunk of the time.
Yeah. And it's not just about the wrong citations themselves. The study also pointed out this sort of blind confidence the chatbots have in those errors. They'll state something that's completely wrong with total certainty, which is, not exactly what you want. And then on top of that, a lot of the links that tools like Gemini and Grok 3 provided were actually broken or just completely made up.
So you're clicking on these links, expecting to find a source, and it's just a dead end.
Exactly. So, right off the bat, this raises huge questions about how much we can actually trust these tools, at least in their current state.
And it gets even more concerning, I think, when you start thinking about health information. Some of the stuff you sent over about that was kind of scary.
Yeah, think about it. People are already turning to the internet for health advice. So what happens when they start using these AI chatbots? Well, there was this study that compared AI chatbots like Bing Copilot with traditional search for drug information. And the findings were pretty unsettling. Medical experts actually looked at the chatbot responses and found that 66% of the inaccurate ones were potentially harmful.
66%?
Yeah. That's not just a mistake.
Yeah.
That could actually have, real-world consequences for someone who's trying to, figure out their medication.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, misinterpreting something. It could be straight-up dangerous advice.
Right, exactly. And this wasn't just a one-off finding. Similar issues have popped up in research on other medical specialties too, like urology, musculoskeletal health, nutrition, all sorts of things. And the trend seems to be, the AI chatbots can provide somewhat accurate answers, but there are these limitations, these inconsistencies that just keep cropping up.
So it seems like, at least for now, we still need those human experts. We can't just rely on AI chatbots for everything.
Yeah, it really reinforces that idea, especially when it comes to specialized knowledge. Now, when it comes to, more general information, some studies actually suggest that AI chatbots and traditional search might be pretty comparable in terms of accuracy. However, there's this interesting split. So AI seems to do really well with those complex, analytical queries where you need to synthesize different sources and kind of draw conclusions. But traditional search, Google, still dominates when you're looking for super specific information like local businesses, details about individuals, that kind of thing.
So it sounds like they each have their strengths and weaknesses.
Right. And it all boils down to how they actually approach finding information.
Yeah.
So Google, it indexes and ranks all these existing web pages, right?
Right.
But AI chatbots, they generate responses based on their training data, which is this massive amount of text and code that they've been fed. And that's a fundamental difference. It means that AI chatbots are more prone to generating information that's, biased or just plain wrong, because their training data might be incomplete or skewed in some way.
So even though they seem super smart, they're still limited by what they've been taught.
Absolutely. And, just to be clear, we're really talking about these conversational AI chatbots here.
Yeah.
not every single AI-powered search tool out there.
Right, because I know there are some search engines that use AI, but they're not trying to, have a conversation with you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the accuracy piece, which, sounds like it still needs some work. But let's talk about the other big draw for a lot of people, the ad-free experience. I mean, that's a pretty big selling point.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think it taps into a lot of people's frustrations with traditional search results. You type in a query and you're bombarded with ads, sometimes even before you see any actual results.
Yeah, it can feel kind of overwhelming.
It can. And there's a whole debate around ads on traditional search engines, right?
Yeah.
Some people argue that they're intrusive, they clutter up the page, they distract you from what you're actually looking for.
Yeah.
But others argue that they can actually be helpful. They can introduce you to new products or services that you might not have found otherwise.
Like you might actually discover something useful.
Exactly. And Google, they're obviously aware of this debate, and they're constantly trying to find that balance between, providing a good user experience and also making money from ads.
Right, because they are a business after all.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, some data actually suggests that users perceive those top sponsored results, the ones that are clearly marked as ads, as more credible.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. But it could be that people associate those ads with, bigger brands or companies that have more to lose if they put out something misleading.
So there's this weird psychology at play.
There is. But of course, there's also the whole issue of banner blindness, where people just tune out ads completely. And then there are valid privacy concerns around how those ads are personalized.
Yeah, like how much data are they collecting about us to target those ads?
Exactly. But getting back to AI chatbots, even though they offer that cleaner, ad-free interface, it doesn't necessarily mean they're more trustworthy.
Right, especially with the accuracy concerns we've already talked about.
Exactly. No ads doesn't automatically equal, perfect information. And studies actually show that user trust in AI-generated information is currently lower than in traditional search results.
So there's still this skepticism.
There is. And then there's also the question of, how sustainable is this ad-free model in the long run? Because these AI systems are incredibly expensive to develop and maintain. So if they're not generating revenue from ads, where's that money going to come from?
Yeah, that's a good point. So where are these AI chatbots actually proving useful right now? It sounds like they have some strengths when it comes to more complex queries.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that they seem to be really good at is handling those really intricate analytical queries, where you need to sift through a ton of information, synthesize different viewpoints, even maybe draw some conclusions. They can also be really helpful for task execution, like helping you book a flight or write an email or things like that.
So they're more like a personal assistant in those cases.
Yeah, in a way. And we're already seeing AI knowledge assistants being adopted within companies and organizations, especially for internal knowledge management. And techniques like retrieval augmented generation, that's where the AI consults a specific data set before responding that's really helping to improve relevance and accuracy in those contexts. So there's definitely a lot of potential there.
Yeah, it sounds like they're becoming more specialized.
They are. And future AI advancements, with even better language understanding, personalization, all that stuff, that holds a lot of promise. And then there's the whole research side of things. AI is increasingly being used in research for tasks like literature reviews, summarizing papers, even generating citations, which can really boost efficiency. But again, that accuracy of the citations remains a big concern.
Right, that keeps coming up.
It does. And there's one area where AI chatbots still seem to struggle, and this was with very specific localized information. Like, if you're trying to find the best pizza place in your neighborhood, you're probably still better off using Google Maps or Yelp.
So they're not going to replace everything just yet?
No, not quite. And actually, we're already seeing a kind of merging of these approaches. Like Google has their search generative experience, where they're incorporating AI into traditional search results.
So it's becoming more of a hybrid.
It is. And a lot of experts believe that this is the direction things are headed. They think that AI might become the go-to for those broader, more informational searches, where you're trying to learn about a topic or get a general overview. But traditional search will probably remain stronger for those transactional tasks, like buying something or booking an appointment.
That makes sense. You'd want the most accurate information possible when you're making a purchase or something like that.
Absolutely. But there's another interesting wrinkle here. There are some pretty intense discussions going on within academia about the use of AI in scholarly work, particularly when it comes to authorship and the reliability of AI-generated citations.
Oh, yeah, I can see that would be controversial.
It is, and right now the prevailing view seems to be one of integration rather than complete replacement, like using AI as a tool to assist with research, but not letting it take over completely.
So it's all about finding that balance.
It is. And while analysts predict that AI usage is going to keep increasing, especially among younger demographics, it seems like Google is likely to maintain its dominant position for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
There are just too many limitations with current AI chatbots. And Google's just so deeply entrenched in our online lives.
Okay, so to sum it all up, it sounds like AI chatbots do offer a really compelling alternative for finding information, especially with that conversational style and the promise of no ads. But those accuracy challenges, especially in areas like health or anything where you need really reliable information, those are major concerns.
Right.
And it doesn't look like they're going to replace traditional search entirely anytime soon. So we're probably heading towards this hybrid approach where we use both depending on our needs.
Exactly. And that brings up a really important question for you, the listener. Think about the types of information where accuracy is absolutely critical for you.
Right.
Now, things where getting it wrong could have serious consequences. And then think about those instances where speed and convenience might be more important, even if it means there's a slightly higher chance of getting something wrong. How do you see your own information-seeking habits evolving as this landscape continues to change?
That's a great question. I'm definitely going to be thinking about that. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.